Keith, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome, Tom. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Were you a big Merle Haggard fan growing up?
We had all kinds of records when I was growing up. Merle Haggard, Don Williams, Glenn Campbell, Charlie Pride, Johnny Cash. Yeah.
Because I love that you sampled Mama Tried right off the top of the record. I hear Roy Nichols playing that guitar sample.
Yeah.
I heard you had to clear that with the family. Is that right?
Well,
or you decided to talk to them?
I just wanted their support. Yeah, it's an that's a sensitive thing, sampling anyone.
Yeah.
And getting their support is everything. So once we had the track starting to get formed, I sent it to Teresa and Merle's son Ben as well, and thankfully they loved it.
Were you nervous at all about it? Were you?
Yeah,
I bet.
Well, because it can be sacrilegious, and I'm sensitive to it too. I have so much respect for Merle and so much respect for those records, and don't think, even though you can just take somebody's song and pay them, it doesn't feel right. The spirit of it doesn't feel right unless they support what we're doing.
It's an interesting contrast to have, because you have Merle, you have Roy Nichols playing that great. I don't even think that's a steel guitar. I think that's just a Telecaster, right?
It's a Tele, and the interesting thing is James Burton is playing the rolling intro. That's James Burton.
Oh, like Elvis's James, like Roy Orbison's James Burton.
Exactly.
Ah, very cool. Did you ever meet him? You ever meet him?
I've met him a couple of times. Yes. Yeah. He lives down in Shreveport, Louisiana. And
so the contrast for me is that you have one of the most iconic country songs of all time, Mama Tried, and then you have Julia Michaels, who I'll say is one of my favorite songwriters right now. And she's writing for Selena Gomez. She's writing for Justin Bieber. Why was that song the first song on the record? Why was it the first thing you wanted us to hear?
Because of the fusion.
Yeah.
I think for me, the sentiment felt right. But I think I liked the stylistic fusion of everything. I felt like it set the template for the rest of the record.
When you say stylistic fusion, what do you mean?
Well, when you're going to get a Haggard riff and Julia Michaels all on the same record,
Yeah.
For me, that the fact that those all flowed together so well, for me at least anyway, felt like the sort of sonic opening of what was to follow with everything else coming after it.
Does it feel, I know you're a great fan of songwriting. I know you're a great songwriter yourself, but you have great respect for songwriters. Even before we turned the microphones on, we were talking back and forth about songwriters we both know. How do you feel about the current crop of like pop songwriters who can seem to kind of do everything? Because I feel like there was a time where if you were writing country songs, you were writing country songs. If you were writing pop songs, you were writing pop songs. If you were writing jazz music, you were writing jazz. But now it feels like there are songwriters like Julia Michaels, like Benny Blanco, who are able to kind of do it all.
Well, I think those people have always existed, though.
Yeah, people who could write country and pop and the whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, pop and country alone has such a long, long history since the late 50s of crossing over constantly. I mean, even when you look at an artist like Glenn Campbell and you listen to a song like Galveston or Wichita Lineman, I mean, it's certainly not Ernest Tubb. It's way more sophisticated, way more cosmopolitan. Those Jimmy Webb chord progressions are like, man, that's a whole other world.
I heard a great line about Wichita Lineman, which is it's just the story of a man trying to do his best every day.
There you go.
Yeah. Isn't it? Isn't that great?
That's
so
a great song.
I'm always really curious into how artists see their work versus how people like the difference between music and music culture in some ways, like how artists see their work versus how people in the media see the artist's work. And I'm seeing a lot of press around that this is Keith Urban's crossover pop record. Do you understand why people would come to that conclusion?
Well, sure, yeah. But, I mean, as far as making music for me, I just make it. I mean, it's going to draw from all kinds of places, and I don't think about it while I'm making it. It's really what the name Graffiti U and the title came from, was just artistic expression with no boundaries, no nothing. I wasn't critiquing anything as I was making it.
But what informs it? Like what informs, in order to have a creative focus, it's a product of a bunch of environmental things that tend to align that focus. So like what was feeding into this?
I think I love sounds, and I love trying to find things that go together sonically, stylistically, rhythmically, musically. I love blending interesting things together and working with interesting musical people like Julia, like J.R. Rodham, who produced the track with me, Jason Evigan, so many creative musician, songwriter, producers, which is also why there ended up being so many co-producers on the record, was because with the exception of one song, all the other 12, each person who's co-producing it with me is a writer on it as well. So it's that's sort of a new phenomena as well for songwriting.
Well, you said to Rolling Stone, my goal was to keep capturing my musical heart where it is right now, and it's in motion. So this is musically where I'm at right now. Like, what were you listening to? What specifically was informing you?
Just everything. I mean, lots of new music.
Yeah.
But I realized, I grew up playing a lot of covers back in the day too. So all of that sort of 80s top 40 stuff comes into play.
What was the first big top 40 cover you played live? Do you remember that?
No idea. I mean, we played a lot of U2 and Mellencamp and Police and all that sort of stuff.
I'd love to hear you sing. I'd love to hear you sing "So Lonely" sometime.
Yeah, we do a little snippet of that live.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
It's a high song, man. That's impossible to sing. Little Stephen from the E Street Band says that the best performers, he says that the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen, wouldn't have existed if they hadn't grown up playing covers. So I find it really interesting that you did. Like, do you think that you learned something inherently by learning what makes songs work by playing covers?
It's a great question. I don't know any other way to be where I'm at, because that was just the way I grew up, much like the Beatles grew up playing, Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly and, Little Richard covers. It's just the way I grew up. But then you look at someone like Julie Michaels, who I don't think has played many, if any, covers in her whole life. It's a very foreign concept to her.
Yeah, that is funny, hey, because he says that. He says the Beatles went to Hamburg and they had to learn how to be a band. They had to learn how to, they had to learn how to make people dance.
Well, and also to find your thing, I think, what they say, the art of originality is knowing how to hide your sources.
I like that a lot. It's also journalism. Yeah.
It's in everything. I mean, we're getting from somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah.
But I think the hard part is shedding all of that at some point and becoming an original artist, and hopefully not being too much like any one person that you sound derivative. That's the biggest challenge.
It's like golfing. Do you golf?
I suck at golf.
I'm really bad at it too, but my father, who was an okay golfer, he was, he used to say to me that you do all your practicing on the driving range, you do all the practicing when you're putting, and then when you go out on the course, you try to forget about it. And then when you forget about it, all that stuff you learned will hopefully just make its way in. So all the covers, all the songs that you listen to, everything you're listening to on the radio at the time.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying. You go in there, you have it all in your back pocket.
Well, it just comes through. It just comes through. It's the filtering of it all. And I think I never know what's going to come out when until we start getting in the studio and creating. And then suddenly the colors that you're painting with are being drawn from those abstract places. A song I may not have thought of, like an old Robert Palmer song, I may not have thought of since the 80s. I suddenly look and I go, oh my gosh, that drum beat is totally from that song, like Drop Top on this record. It is totally inspired from just the simplistic drum beat of Johnny and Mary, which is a very obscure Robert Palmer song with this Casio type simplistic dum 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 dum. That drove that song.
So it's all starting to mix. I think I came in here really curious about where country music and pop music is right now, because I saw you and Julia, right? I saw you and Julia make this record together, or make this song together. And then I saw Bebe Rexha and Florida Georgia Line do that song, and I saw Maren Morris have that. She has a big #1 top 40 hit, right? With Zed, isn't it? Something like that, yeah. So I came in curious as to whether, I know we mentioned Jimmy Webb, but whether country music and more top 40 pop music were colliding in a way they hadn't before.
Well, yeah, because of the speed of which we hear everything now too. The explosion of streaming and.
You think that has something to do with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything has to do with everything.
I think there's a Robert Palmer song. No, but you can tell me more about that. I don't know what you mean.
Well, I mean, we're hearing everything now
at
a much faster rate, and people are hipping everybody to music at a much faster rate. I think every musician in every genre is aware of every other musician in every genre.
And no longer are we tied to our genres either.
They're collapsing left, right, and center.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, from an artistic, creative standpoint, to not have to label something is obviously more liberating. Yeah.
Do you still feel like a country artist?
I've always felt like an artist.
Right.
And I fuse and draw from all manner of places. So
You've never felt like necessarily a country artist?
I grew up playing country music,
Right.
but also grew up playing covers in bands. So I've always blended all of these elements together.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. I mean, it's so interesting the way people who create things see music versus
Right.
the people who either market it or the people who write about it see
Sure,
it. Because I think
yeah.
most people would see you as, oh, Keith Urban, he's a country singer.
Right.
And you don't, like the fact that you don't see it that way is interesting to me.
I don't not see it that way. I'm just saying that
I hear what you're saying.
Everybody's going to label it different, and that's since I moved to Nashville, it's always been like that. We'd create a song that someone in Nashville may go, well, that's not very country, and every person you play to outside of Nashville goes, yeah, it's pretty country. So it's just where you are, your perspective of where you are, how you label things.
Do you feel like there's a divergence in Nashville right now with people? I mean, you have people like Jason Isbell and Sturgill Simpson doing so incredibly well, and Casey Musgraves doing really well. And a lot of the things you see written is that, oh, there's a line drawn in the sand. I mean, there's these guys making this more rootsy or story-based song music, and then there's kind of everything else. Do you see it that way? Or do you see it as all kind of one big pot?
It's so simplistic to label it any one which way. The only thing I wish radio was able to play more diversity.
Yeah?
But they're beholden to the listeners too, and every other sort of thing, structure, if you will, that decides what gets played, what doesn't get played. But I've always, when I moved to Nashville, and then started touring around, people go, what kind of music you play? And say country, and they go, oh, I don't like country. And I thought, it'd be great to get to the point one day where someone goes, well, what's the music you play? Play country. Oh, what kind? That would be a better,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
instead of just cutting it off completely, because within the one genre, there's so many facets of it. I'm sure within most genres, there's all kind of little facets within it.
And you've been really responsible for that. You've been responsible along with people like Taylor Swift, along with people like Tim McGraw, at bringing people into country music who wouldn't necessarily be into it before. You're like a gateway drug to country music. But do you see it that way?
Certainly, I'm one of many people that have brought people into the genre. Yeah.
Back to the record, you have a song with Ed Sheeran on this record, a song that Ed Sheeran wrote on this record. Tell me how that one came to you.
Yeah. There's about 5 writers on that song.
How's that?
Julia Michaels being one of them again. Benny Blanco and Ed and Johnny McDade.
These are big pop songwriters, Keith. This is great. I mean, this is interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, Ed's a great writer. I mean, everybody knows that. He writes great songs. Parallel Line was the song they sent to me, I think around June of last year, and I just loved it. I loved the honesty on it, the vulnerability of it, the melody. I loved everything about it.
Can you boil it down to what a song is? Is there something that a song needs to have for you to do it? Like, is there something that you're listening for?
It speaks to me, and it doesn't mean that it's going to work for me though. I've had many songs that I loved, and I just couldn't get myself around it in the studio. It just never quite. The jacket just never quite fit. You know what I mean? I really wanted the jacket. I really loved it. And you wear it around, and you're like, it's just not me. I wish it was me, but it just doesn't feel like me.
Is that a hard call to make?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's so many songs I love that I just personally don't feel like I can quite become one with it.
So is it something you know? So it's something you know relatively immediately, though, that you at least want to try it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Are you good at turning them down? I feel like that would be an awkward thing to do.
Turning them down as far as...
If someone wrote you and said, hey, Keith, why don't you do my song? And you have to write back and go, I don't really want to do
No,
my song.
it doesn't, I don't feel it for me personally.
God love you. I would find that so hard.
No, I do it right away, and I do it right away, and I always do it personally too.
Good.
Yeah.
It can be a challenging thing to do. I don't know why I'm emoting you so
The
much.
harder thing is calling the writers of songs that we recorded which aren't going to be on the album.
Oh, really?
That's a harder call.
So you done the record.
Yeah.
People are very excited that you're going to do their song.
Yes.
And then you have to call them up and go,
It's not on the record.
yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
How do you do with it? But you do it personally?
Yeah.
That's good of you, Keith. You could get some. you could get someone to do that for you.
Rip that Band-Aid
Yeah,
off.
you could get someone to do that for you. That's kind of you to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's a low blow. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of the time it's nothing to do with anything other than I had 3 songs that are similar to that, and I chose this one. The saving grace sometimes is usually I'm a writer on the song, so I'm calling to ditch one of my own songs, but nonetheless, it doesn't make it any less painful for the writers.
But I feel like it's important for you to call them because you know what it's like to be them. You know what it's like to be starting out. You know what it's like to be trying.
Yeah, and it's not personal. It's just totally.
Yeah, it's not easy, right?
No,
And
rejection. It's a horrible thing,
isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Some people.
It's not you. It's me, man.
Yeah, believe me, I've gotten that text enough times to know all about it, Keith. To be
That
honest.
text, ow, that's cold.
I know. They don't even pull a Keith Urban and call me. They can't even do that. You've worked with some great Canadian artists as well. You've worked with Gordy Sampson. What memories do you have of working with Gordy?
Oh gosh,
Pride of Cape Breton.
he's a great singer.
Yeah.
And I find it sometimes hard writing with great singers like Gordy, because when they're in the room writing, everything they're singing sounds great. And you're like, fantastic, that's great. And then, I realize, oh, wait a minute, I have to sing it. He's just a great singer.
You did a great job, and you cut You Were Somebody Like You. Well,
Yeah.
Not Somebody Like You,
Yeah.
but You Were Somebody Like You, which is a
Yeah.
hard song to sing.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, the greatest conspiracy since JFK.
Yeah.
It's a hard line to sing.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Isn't it a great song?
Yeah.
I thought it was I love that you did it, even though it sounded like the title sounded like your other big hit.
I know, yeah, it didn't bother me.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't get the call.
But I think it became a bonus track on a record, maybe.
Do you see Canadians down there in Nashville? Do you feel a Canadian presence in Nashville?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ever since I've been there 26 years, and there's always been a strong Canadian presence down there, writers, artists.
I think we're in Canada grappling often with who are we in country music, especially that we're so close to the United States. Do you feel a kinship, or do you feel a certain perspective on what it's like to come into Nashville or to the United States as an outsider that Canadians would also feel?
Very much kinship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell me more about that.
Well, because we're outsiders, me even more so. At least you guys are still, you guys can walk there.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
You can swim.
But yeah, I've always felt that sense of wanting to be accepted in that town.
Bernie Taupin told me that he thinks he was able to write about America better because he was observing it as an outsider, that he could see America through what we call an edict lens. We could see it for everything that it is as opposed to living through it. Do you feel like being an outsider of the United States helps you in that way as well?
I don't know about that specifically. I haven't written about specifically American things like Bernie has, or Tumbleweed Connection, some of those records.
Yeah.
But the different influences that I've had growing up, especially a lot of music from England. And I think that's the one thing I've always related with Canadians, is that we have music from England all through Europe and America sort of all coming to us. That's how I grew up in Australia. And from day one when I came up here and toured, I felt this immediate connection with everybody based on that musical influence.
Oh, and you're excited to be at the CCMAs?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun, eh?
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to?
Well, we're touring after that too, so it's sort of a great kickoff to it all.
I'm happy you get to do it in the warm weather.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Because we've been up here in the winter and
You've
toured.
done
But the great thing about touring here in the winter is everybody comes out. Because first of all, it ain't nothing for anybody up here, man. And it's like, and no competition.
Yeah.
And nothing else happening.
It's you and this band called Trooper, and you're both at conflicting
Trooper?
arenas. They're the only other band I know who do the winter Canadian tours.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's cool.
Trooper, Blue Rodeo, and Keith Urban.
There you go.
Do the
I'm in
winter
fine
Canadian
company.
tours. It's nice to meet you, man.
You too, Tom.
Appreciate you chatting.
Anytime.
Thanks.